This is Father George Thadathil from the Department of English, Salesian College, Sonada. In my first talk, I had addressed you on Abhijnana Shakuntalam by Kalidasa, which is there in the English Honours program, newly introduced in the CBCS syllabus. And first I would just try to recall the 4 points made there, and then continue, as I had promised at the end there, with the second part of this lecture. First of all, we looked at the relevance of introducing into the English literature program study from and a study on the classical Indian Sanskrit original text in translation, of course. That's Abhijnana Shakuntalam, and the recollection of Shakuntala by famous poet and dramatist Kalidasa of 5th century AD. We looked, of course, at the literature of any place, of any country, as part of that culture, and culture as intrinsically communicating worldview, and this worldview, this vision, this philosophy as the essential aspect of literature. And fourthly, of course, we looked in summary at the text and the narrative and the main characters and how it gets delineated, and why Shakuntalam became so very popular in the imagination of people, whoever happened to read it, whether in original or in translation, and with William Jones making it, and how in the from mid 18th century onwards it was a kind of admired text. And even to this day, and even as students, those of you who have read the text would realize how enchanting it is, and the romantic tone, and also the experience someone who is in love goes through, especially when it does not get fulfilled in the way one expects it to arrive at and move forward. So we looked at its intrinsic beauty and the texture of its the story and the narrative. And we entered the first lecture by hinting at the context in which this was written, and this is what I would like to elaborate in this. You see, the meaning of a great epic or a poem or a drama keeps growing on the reader, and down through the centuries, different people have read and admired it. Why? And we are admiring it now. Why? And why is it being at this particular juncture of the history of, let's say, the Indian socio-political transitions, this text is found as worth reintroducing. So there are a number of contrasts, as you would have seen, between nature and city, between king and the commoner, between palace and the ashram, between the earthly realities and heavenly abode, where it actually the drama ends. So you could see a number of contrasts besides, or the binaries as well, of the rustic aspect of the rural natural beauty of Shakuntala, in contrast to the elegance and regalia of King Dushyanta. So in this recollection of Shakuntala, we could read this play in the background of contemporary happenings as a replication of what happened during Kalidasa's own time. And some of the commentators have touched on this aspect. You see, from Mauryan Empire, it was undergoing a transition to the Gupta Empire. In other words, from the Buddhist philosophy and approach to life as having from the time of Buddha to Ashoka been the ingredient of the social political life of India, there's a return to the Brahminic kind of organization of life and rekindling of the traditional Manusmriti kind of organization of life happening. And it is at that juncture that Kalidasa, a court poet and dramatist, is being asked in a way to justify through this narrative this transition. This is one reading. This transition, when we say from an egalitarian arrangement of life, whether it is the Buddhist Sangha or the Buddhist councils, so we have indications of a kind of democratic mode of living, a situation where egalitarianism was accepted, honored, and held in high regard. That undergoing a change or taking a beating, and that society can be hierarchical, that each one performs duties and works as per one's role that is assigned from birth, and this kind of a stratification of society gets reintroduced into society. So this is one dimension of this novel, this play, if you are reading it critically with the present socio-political context and the socio-political context when Kalidasa wrote it, for you as a critique, as a literary critic, to read and to interpret. It's up to you. Now, the Shakuntala is victimized. Now we could ask the question, who actually victimizes Shakuntala? No, of course she is like any young woman looking forward to getting married, and between Anasuya and Priyamvada, they are lucky, they are happy for her who at first sight falls in love with Dushyanta, and Dushyanta too falls for her or admires her beauty. Now she's so much caught in it and dreaming about it that Kanva, when he visits, doesn't feel honored, and therefore he puts a curse. So is it the divine curse on Dushyanta and Shakuntala that leads her into this victim's position of not being recognized, not being accepted by the king, who gives his own ring to her, saying that I mean that my love for you, and I will welcome you into the palace when you come with this. But that doesn't happen. So is it the gods victimizing the humans? Or humans victimizing humans? The rich victimizing the poor, the city dweller victimizing the rural population. These questions are relevant as depicted in the play, and we cannot but read today with our own socio-political historical background. So there is injustice, there is inequality, and there is the question of domination, some having it, some not having it, some having the power to make things happen, to accept or to reject, and others just being at the mercy of one's own luck, or if, as in the case of Shakuntala, privileged by the divine, the godly beings, to take care of her in her distress. So Kalidasa's narration of the recognition of Shakuntala could be read today with this angle of who is the victim in the story on the one hand, in society. Who are the perpetrators of this violence, the disruption and corruption and injustice in society, and who are the witnesses? This is, you and I as reader are also in a way party to or are implicated in what is happening. How do we see it? Whose side do we take? Can we be truly neutral in situations of injustice? So what makes us to appreciate or critique the story and socio-political reality on the other in a particular way? I think these are questions that come before us, of course, along with the routine things that you would definitely appreciate in the poem, in this poetic drama, that of the various rasas of the Natya Shastra being so very well depicted by Kalidasa, the Navarasas, his quality of writing, the usage of words, the rhyme, the musicality of the text, the power of words on the other. So was Kalidasa truly free to express all that he wanted, or was he also constrained in his depictions? This is a question that we could pose. So this historical consciousness, is it being subdued by the mythological, the way the play ends? Are we all try to forget the here and now hard realities and get yourself lost in these mythical realities? It's something like saying, yes, the poor have no consolation but to watch movies to get rid of the hard realities in today's context. So it is indeed a poetic work to be studied as poetry, and also as a socio-political testament. And let's remember that any text in that sense has got a religious component, a philosophical component, a socio-political component to it. And in unearthing these strands of a text, the reader manifests his or her ability and understanding of the text. Thank you.
This and other episodes of Radio EduPods, Radio for Learning, are available on Listen to My Radio app at 6 p.m. from Monday to Friday and at 6 a.m. from Tuesday to Saturday. All episodes are available on Salesian TV YouTube channel. Share, like and subscribe Salesian TV, the ultimate learning resource channel.